Good morning, everybody. Back to American Scouser morning coffee, and Maka has the tea over there. Maka, how are we doing this morning? Did you recover from Saturday yet?
I haven't recovered from last year yet, so Saturday is just getting added on to the end of it all. But no, probably not. Yeah, it's the same as anything else. You wait for the next game to come around, and then you go on from there.
Yeah, it wasn't the best start to the weekend, that's for sure. It's definitely great to have the game back, Premier League back. Kind of like reshapes the entire weekends. Sadly, when the Liverpool result doesn't go well on a Saturday morning, shapes the rest of Saturday as well and Sunday a little bit too. But it was good to have football back. What was the most shocking result to you over the weekend?
Probably the United one more than ours. We I think in the post match we talked about, we generally tend to do not as well on the early morning kickoffs for us, but the mid afternoon kickoffs for them over there. And it was an away game, first game of the season. You know, it could go either way. They're the newly promoted team, probably coming out all guns blazing. But United is the new revolution. It's the beginning of all the new things in soccer, apparently, by all the press that came beforehand. The great Dutch savior, and it was more of the same. And it was you love to see it.
Yeah, I have this stupid superstition where if a score is going well or the way I like it, I never turn the game on. So when I saw like them, it was already only tied when I first walk up. And then while I get going, it's 1-0, then it's 2-0. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to jinx this because I know if I turn it on, the comeback is going to begin. So it was kind of like, and I got a text message from my brother saying the torture begins again. So so as a United fan, I know he was all like upset, like what the hell is going on, kind of thing. And then today I think yesterday evening, actually, right after the game, the word was out that they're after Arnautovic, who is playing in Italy somewhere now. I think. I mean, it was not a expensive buy or anything for about like 8 million. I think is what I saw. What do you make of that? Like, if I'm a United fan, I'd be like, what the hell are you guys talking about?
If I'm a United fan, apart from spending an hour every day bashing my head against the wall just because, I'd probably be very disappointed that the fantastic new revolution, the clearing of the old ways and the in with the new is beginning with Arnautovic from West Ham as the signing they want. Of all the players they could get in the entire world, that's the one they want. It's very uninspiring. I mean, he could go there and be great. There's a tendency for that kind of thing, the cheap and cheerful player going to a club and doing really well. But it's Arnautovic. He wasn't great when he was at West Ham. I don't think he's going to be great at Man United.
And I don't like they do this where they go after like players who are past their prime. They did this with Cavani. They one time got Igalo. Like just like these weird moves that are just basically waste of money in some ways. Is it just because there's no patience to go get a young guy? But wouldn't a young guy have more excitement when he hits the field for the fans and for the team as opposed to like trotting out like Arnautovic over there? I don't even know. Let's find out how old he is. But I mean, I just don't understand why they would go after these guys. He's 33 years old.
Um, it's funny in the sense that United were always built on the reputation of bringing through the kids from their youth teams up into the first team, from the Busby Babes to the George Best version of United. You can't win the league with kids. 90s golden generation with Giggs and Beckham and all of that. They've always been the club that brings through the young players, except for their very bad times, which is when they in the 70s and the early 80s, so to speak, where they were just buying granddads almost, the equivalent of granddads at the time, because they were. It strikes me as in the back office or the front office, whatever you want to call it, not knowing who to go for and just recognizing names and then going for the people that they know. Well, this guy did a job in the Premier League. We know his name, so let's buy him. But this other kid, we don't know anything about that kid, so let's not bother with that one. Because it seems like it's not. It seems like whatever Ten Hag is going to bring, discipline wise and organizational, to the field, it seems like it's a mess in the upstairs at Man United right now, which is unheard of for them.
I mean, like I say, it's a joy to watch and a joy to rip on my brother for everything about anything United related. Kind of like ease the pain rest of the weekend, if you will. But it's just odd to see like them making these moves or going after moves that are basically just losses. It's not like you're going to sell Arnautovic at 35 years old for like 10 million, 12 million. So, we talk about, Liverpool sometimes just making kind of like adding to the bank with these smaller moves, like getting a younger guy, selling him for 8, getting another guy, selling him for 4 and stuff. And it doesn't, but they add up. Whereas they're almost doing the reverse. They're getting a guy for 8, they're getting a guy for 10 that they know either who's going to run their contract out or they're not going to get anything for them. They're going to get a lot less for them than what they're giving. So, I mean, may long it continue by all means.
I just have to think though, like if I'm Cristiano Ronaldo with all the trouble that's going on around him, and you read in the papers that the big forward signing for United before the window shuts is Arnautovic. I mean, what are you thinking right there and then? Like, how's your season going to go? How are you going to walk on the training ground and look at everybody and go, "Oh, this is
you're Ronaldo challenge." And you're like, "Hey, this is probably like maybe you're like, oh, they're finally getting my replacement." I mean, you'll be offended that your replacement. You're like, you know what? Same thing, Ronaldo or Arnautovic. What's the difference?
It's like replacing Ronaldo with me, almost.
Like, we got this guy. He plays forward.
I'm almost as old as Arnautovic. We've got that in common, at least.
So speaking of another forward, we actually, when we were talking about in the pre-production meeting that we do, which is even shorter than the show, is this one right here. Oh, the wrong one here. Chelsea's Timo Werner is heading back to Germany, heading back to Leipzig. What do you make of that? I mean, this is kind of like an interesting one for us Liverpool fans because we were linked with them for so long. And I'll admit, I was disappointed when we were not able to get across the line and we kind of like backed out. The price tag was too high. What do you make of the whole play? I mean, I really still feel like if he came to Liverpool, he would be a big time player. I think he would fit in with his pace and what he does on the wing, being able to come inside from the wing. And I thought he would be a great fit. Would things be totally different for him if he didn't go after the big money at the time?
Possibly. It could also just be a fact that league doesn't suit him because that happens. It's a slightly different situation because he's an absolute head case. But you would expect it at the time Balotelli to say come to Liverpool and fit in because he's such a big player and such a reputation. But he never really settled in the Premier League. Like he wasn't even, I don't think, a consistent player at City when he was there. And I think it's just sometimes the league you move from and the league you go to are so different that you just can't settle in the technical aspect of the game. That it's kind of what you would almost fear would have happened with Nunes when he came along, but he's just settled right in. He's hit the ground running. So I think you're right though in terms of system. If he'd have come to Klopp's system rather than Tuchel's, he was a lot more defensive, I think, than Klopp is. He might have done a lot better. But you have to kind of give them credit for cutting their losses when they can, rather than holding the player and hoping for the best, because I think that's another mistake a lot of clubs make and a lot of players is staying and hoping that it'll change. Naby Keita. And it never does because it's
morning. Keita hates. What's up with that?
I actually don't hate Keita. I just don't think he suits the English league. Like it's too busy for him in midfield. I think sometimes great on the ball, but you need more. Like you need more than that. But that's to digress. It's just he hasn't fulfilled the hype. And I think the same with Werner. He just hasn't fulfilled the hype. And rather than hold on to him and hope for the best, I think Chelsea are making a smart move in letting him go.
And I think it's a bit easier right now, especially a player like Werner, to kind of like convince him to go. If you would, sometimes you have these players who kind of like make it a pride issue too. It's like, no, I'm going to stay and earn my spot and stuff like that. But with the World Cup looming, I think a lot more players are a lot more likely to kind of like move on and get playing time and make it to that plane, to the extreme heat in Qatar. But one way or the other, I think it's a lot easier to move those players in some ways. I really think with the physical tools he had and the ability he had, if he was in our system, we would have definitely made more out of him. The only thing that I don't know is like kind of like the off the ball, the press work that he would do. But I think if we were even interested in him, and we were in the talks a lot, you would think that's something that they had already looked at and said he's gonna fit. So that's another reason. The fact that we went after him kind of tells me, he fit what we wanted. It's just the price didn't match up at the time. It was overvalued, and I'd like to say I was disappointed when we did not get him at the time. But good luck to him in Germany. I really feel like he's gonna go back there. It's gonna feel home. Well, it is home, I guess. And then he's gonna get scoring again, and he'll make it to the World Cup. And I think he's just trying to earn the starting spot in the World Cup.
But I think it's interesting what you say there, though, because if we did look at him, then we probably did look at his pressing stats and think that he could do it. Whereas Chelsea don't press like we do. They're too very, and it just probably didn't suit him because he probably wanting to go forward and wanting to go hunt the ball, but he's doing it on his own, which means he's probably getting tired in games if that's his natural instinct. Which means he wasn't really fresh when the ball came to him eventually. So it could have been just that. But on paper, on just the pure outcome, it looked like we didn't miss a trick with that one.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not a system. It was one of those deals where he was the hot striker at the time based on like the goals he was scoring and what he was doing. That's more why Chelsea went after him as opposed to actually like fitting their system. And now they're packing him back. So speaking of somebody who does not want to pack it, as opposed to Werner over here, is Frankie de Jong, this has been like the longest ongoing story this summer. Barcelona, who must have more accountants than players at this point, trying to fudge the numbers. But they cannot register the new players because La Liga kind of ruled against that. So they do have to move some people. But they keep saying, is this like Barcelona trying to keep increasing the price, saying he really doesn't want to go, otherwise we would have sent him already. But, maybe if you guys make the offer a bit better kind of deal, or does the guy really would rather be a part of the Barca? I can understand him why he would prefer Barcelona to United, obviously, especially after seeing the weekend.
I literally think that's what happened. I think you just wait to see you had the first game United and you immediately called up to Barcelona. No. I'm not going. Like, you can sell me anywhere. Sell me to a schoolboys team, but I'm not going to United. But I as much as we loved the Pep Guardiola Barcelona team, and in general they always have great soccer teams, they've always been a shady outfit. So in how they deal with players, like we know from Coutinho and stuff like that, and Suarez even, like how they like to prod and poke and all that. And Cesc Fabregas, I think, as well, when he was at Arsenal.
Yeah.
Like, they're a bit shady. So I wouldn't put it past them if that's what the thing is. I kind of admire Frankie de Jong, though, digging his heels in and going, well, no, I'm not going now.
And they're saying the biggest thing is because he's owed a ton of money by Barcelona, but you would think whoever is going after him is going to go for the fact that, they're going to pay that and all that kind of stuff as well. Like I say, I can see why he wouldn't want to go to United, but I can also see why he would be really questioning going to Chelsea because that's a crowded midfield. I know Kante is not always healthy, but you have Jorginho, you have Kovacevic. There's a lot of bodies in that midfield where he's not going to be. You would think he would start and get some minutes, but it's not going to be a guarantee. He's going to rotate in that midfield. Do you think that's a part of the deal? Like, you'd rather go to a team where you rather start. I don't think his spot is in much of jeopardy in the World Cup or anything like that. But
Mm.
I mean, or he just feels like Barcelona is building something, which they are. I mean, they're not only the players they did in the off season, but they got a lot of like youngsters as always, like coming through. He just feels like this is a better project for the long term, and his girlfriend likes it there and all that kind of stuff.
It could be that. To be honest, though, like there is a club that you could go to in England that really drastically need his services probably at this point. But we probably wouldn't be able to pay him for him. Like we'd be digging down the sofa for quarters to like add up to the fees. But I mean, it could be that. It could be that he's happy there. But if I was earning the money he was earning and somebody wasn't paying me that money, I would absolutely dig my heels in and make life as difficult as possible for them until I got that money into the bank account. And from the few Dutch people I've met in my life, they can be very, very stubborn about stuff like that as well. So it's quite possible that's him saying, like, if you want to play that game, I can play it just as well. But I think you're right. Like going to Chelsea, if you're looking at Chelsea, they're buying a lot of players, and they're just constantly buying players, as we talked about the other day. Almost like the new owner wants to impress the supporters with their buying power, and it's going to become too bloated there. And it'll be almost like going to Manchester City. You go there as a fullback, and you go, well, there's three fullbacks in front of me. So, like, I'm going to coast here. I'm going to get my paycheck. I'm going to play a few games, and that's that. And I'll be happy and fat, like me. And that's that. So I think that might turn them off Chelsea. It again. If you're looking at, apart from the result, you're looking at them. They're going for Arnautovic. I'm not going there. No, come on.
Yeah, I don't want my assist going to.
Yeah, but I think that's just the funny buggers, as they say in England, that Barcelona tends to get involved in, coming back on them for a change.
So another rumor, and I think this is like a close one actually, is this kind of popped up yesterday. Even a lot of these news actually we were able to see last night. Usually we kind of like wake up to these with the coffee, but was Everton going after Cody, and I'm assuming that has to be mainly due to Godfrey's injury, because he came out and he's gonna have surgery and is gonna be out for a while and stuff like that. Do you think that's why, or was this in the plans all along to get another center back in there? It's not like they had the greatest pairing to start with.
I don't know, because it seems like it's a loan deal first, or possibly a loan to buy. So you might be right on that. It might be that they weren't looking specifically. But Cody makes a lot of sense because he's from Liverpool, isn't he? Originally, so like he it'd be almost like coming home for him, even if he's going to the other side, so to speak. Yeah, it'd be nice for Cody in that sense, because you want them to do well in life. Although why you go to Everton to do well in life, I don't know. Even the Rats don't go there anymore. But like for Everton, they're getting a good player. It's just that he's going to be managed by Frank Lampard, so they may as well get this microphone here and for all the good that Frank Lampard is going to do. But yeah, no, I think once Godfrey got injured, then they probably needed a panic sort of transfer in, and that made sense. I'm sure there's a grapevine that goes around for all these clubs, and they probably hear that he was available, and it made a lot of sense. And he's English, so Lampard would know him.
By the way, you see on the same headline, and this is, I saw the headline without the photo initially. Like, this is out of our American Scouser.com page on the LFC News. If you want to, like,
everybody should visit.
Yes, I mean, because this is basically where everything is. All these headlines, we're not going from site to site. We're just like all on the same sites. And when I saw the name and Wolves agreed to the fee with Valencia, I'm not too familiar with the player. But without even seeing the photo, I was like, he must be Portuguese. So Cody was not Portuguese enough. So they kind of like loan him out and they get this guy, because I think they know they're kind of in trouble in attacking with their striker out for a while now. Are you familiar with this dude at all?
No, I don't know. I don't know him at all. and he has a very, very stereotypical Portuguese name. And where I live is
Man, you're like Mr. Stereotype this morning. The Dutch, the
where
Portuguese.
where I live, the town I live in is a huge Portuguese enclave almost, and all my friends here are Portuguese, so I know all of the
Wait, where are
Carvalhos
you at again?
in Connecticut in Naugatuck.
I remember in one of the podcasts, Gally brought this up about being in the Portuguese community, and Bickler and were like, "What the hell are you talking about, dude? You're in like the East Coast." Yeah, we were none of us were aware of like the
It's
heavy Portuguese
huge in my
presence.
town. But yeah, look, I don't know anything about the guy, and I think you're right. They probably need firepower up front. They didn't look too hot against Brighton or against who were they playing there? Leeds, was it?
Leeds, yeah.
Yeah. They didn't look too hot against Leeds. And obviously the coach didn't think they looked too hot either, because he was furious with Jesse Marsh at the end of the game. I thought that was interesting. That was and not to be stereotypical yet again today, but it was almost like having an argument with Ted Lasso, because Jesse Marsh was trying to be all nice about everything and in his jeans and his polo top. And then getting shouted at by
oh man, you're like I'm gonna. So those interested, I will put Mecca's email on the video, so you guys can, all the Dutch, the Portuguese, and Americans can send emails to you directly.
I love the Portuguese Americans. As I said, they're all my neighbors and friends, and they make great sandwiches for real. But yeah, like it's a good move now. I think you said as well before the show, it not tied to the Cody thing. That seems almost like a separate thing. But it's I don't see Wolves doing anything major this year, so he might be another Timo Werner, so to speak, but at a much lower level.
It was actually one of the teams that we thought would fight for relegation, but would make it just based on their defense normally. And that's what kind of like scares me about this move or what they're doing with Cody, is because Cody is a big part of that ordeal, and he's kind of like ran that back line for a long time. I would think they have the succession plan in place, so they feel he's expandable, but it's kind of like a risky business where you're not going to score a lot, and now like the only part of your team you're kind of disrupting and you're adding a new striker who, I mean, they're constantly throwing Portuguese people in there and see if it pans out. And the transition to the Premier League is not always the easiest for a lot of players. So if that doesn't pan out, you already couldn't score. Now you're going to start conceding goals. I just feel like this kind of like really, for me, initially, I was thinking that they would be fighting for relegation. Now I feel like they're going to come even closer, because you look at the teams that play this weekend, a lot of like, I don't want to say cagey, but I don't know if it's like early season, not the best being played, not the best football or soccer, whatever we're going to call it, being played this weekend. Like it could be like the early season stuff. But you look at some of the teams over the weekend, and you can't find a whole lot that you would consider Wolves to be much better than.
I think I think it'd be interesting to look at though whether Wolves' great defense is Bruno Lage. I can never say the Portuguese names correctly as much as they're all my friends.
What the hell? What the hell?
Bruno Lage is if it's his defense or if it's a holdover from Nuno beforehand, because he was a really good defensive coach. And with moving Cody on, if that happens, is it now going to be a case that like the sort of institutional memory of how Nuno had them playing defensively, is that now gone? Is Bruno going to be getting his own sort of defenders in a sort of in the same way that like Brendan Rodgers does? That is, he comes into teams and they might have a settled defense, and he eventually starts picking it apart to get the ball playing defenders that he loves that can't actually defend. And then which not to slam Brendan Rodgers, because I like Brendan Rodgers, but that's what he does. He brings in these ball playing defenders that are great when they have possession and absolutely awful when they don't. So maybe it's a case that he's picking apart Nuno's team to put his own mark on the defense, and it might not work out as well as he thinks it's going to go, especially if he's going to lose a major key player from that back line.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's a very risky move. Not as risky as getting Arnautovic, I guess, but I mean, I was just like reading. There's like all kinds of headlines this morning. I was looking for any other headlines this AM like to that we should like react to, and every one of them has a United player with his head in his hand, just like different like or like Ten Hag, or there's that video, there's that image with the bench where Ronaldo's making a face as they're getting kind of something scored on. And that was another deal. I thought Ten Hag had, just let's go back to United and enjoy that on our way out. But, I thought it was a good move to put Ronaldo on the bench. And, we're like, you know what, you're going to be starting on the bench, kind of like throws authority around. But I don't know if it looks any good when you're down 2-0 and Ronaldo's on the sideline saying like, so when do you want me in now?
Yeah.
And then he comes like trots in there. I think it's a big mess they've created with Ronaldo. And the problem is it's not like the whole, we talk about Barcelona and De Jong and stuff. There are suitors for him. There's like different teams that would be after him or would like him. I don't know how many people are in for Ronaldo to start with, and that list has diminished to almost nothing now.
I think the rumor that I read in one of the gossip things was an MLS team were interested, possibly DC United, maybe. Like that's the level, if that's true, but that's the level of teams now being associated with, just in pure rumor. It's not like PSG are going from, or Bayern Munich are sniffing around, or it's DC United and MLS. Which, no disrespect, obviously we love MLS over here, and there's fine clubs in MLS, but that's not Ronaldo's level in his own head. Ronaldo still thinks he should be in the Champions League final, and he's probably absolutely livid when Real Madrid beat us in the Champions League final, because he probably thought he should have been there scoring the winning goal. That's his mentality. So. Yeah, I think like that's just it's a pleasant, heartwarming mess at Manchester United. Worthy of some Emmys.
Yes,
and it's just a shame that All or Nothing did their show on Arsenal and not Manchester United this year.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't even need a producer. You would just be like, take the camera guy, just go out there, man. Just shoot whatever. It's going to be great for TV. Just like, no production required.
And I mean this wholeheartedly. Liverpool and Man United need each other at the top level, at the top of the game. I think it's always even when Man United weren't winning things in the 70s and 80s. Just the fact that they were there always drove Liverpool on to be better, and vice versa. So you don't want United to become a shell of a club, like as can happen, like Leeds implode in the 90s or the 2000s rather, and then getting relegated and stuff. I don't think that's going to happen to United. But you kind of want them to be reasonably at the top of their game, not quite just there, so it makes things a bit easy for us. But there are shambles. It's literally.
I enjoy this a lot more. I mean, I enjoy the results, the drama behind the results, the characters involved. I just find it as a joy. I know what you mean for the rivalry point of things, but if they were just bad, but without the drama, I'd be with you. But they're bad and they provide great drama, which I love.
But they're going through like what we went through in the 90s as supporters of Liverpool when we weren't there anymore, when we lost our perch, to quote somebody that was related to United. I can't remember his name. But we never acted like that. As far like I know there's a joke going around like next year is our year for Liverpool, but that's about the extent of it that it got. Like we had our own battles to be fighting with Hillsborough and things like that to keep us grounded, so to speak. But we were never like there was never an awful lot of hubris about Liverpool in terms of we're not where we should be. We kind of knew where we were for a long time in the mid-90s until Houllier came along and kind of dragged us back up into the area of professionalism. But I'm not even talking about the United fans. From the club itself, they seem to think that every move they make is the greatest move that's ever been made in soccer. Let's bring Ryan Giggs in to manage. Let's bring Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in to manage. Let's get probably one of the best coaches of the last 20 years in, and then completely not support him whatsoever, even if he got second place in the Europa League. Like, it's just that arrogance that comes along with like every move they make. That's now the best move they've ever made.
I mean, just a joy.
Like, they have a technical director on the coaching staff. Their director of football is on the bench with what's his name? I can never remember his name. Like,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name either because I know like they talk about him all the time.
But yeah, like it's that's the comedy of it. Like that's the comedy is that in the background they're just making terrible moves. It's not even what's happening on the field; it's what's happening in the back.
And I think like great. We did that when the team was not good. There were some buys made with hope that always flopped and turned into a disaster. I just don't remember, like you're saying, just some of the other drama in the background that was happening with the different managers and different characters. And then, you're like, it's getting a little stale. Let's add a new character in Ronaldo back. Let's bring back the Ronaldo character back from 4 seasons ago. it's like a bad soap opera, which, like I say, I love watching.
It's like The Simpsons. It's like Poochie. They're waiting for Poochie to come in. Like, where's Poochie? We need Poochie. And then Ronaldo shows up and then throws a face on.
Yeah, more of
to
that,
the max.
More of that. And I know, they're headed to Brentford. Then obviously we play them. So it should be an interesting couple of weeks for them as well as us. Let's see how the boys respond. But It's time for the second cup of coffee already, Mecca. So we'll call the day today. And then let's see what kind of headlines we have tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.